everyone can agree that there is kind of a disconnect between maybe community trust and policing. I think body cams were kind of a huge first step with like transparency and kind of bridging that gap. I'm curious if you have any other solutions, or if in your experience, if there were things you did that maybe personally helped bridge that gap, or how do you think we get to a place where people just generally trust cops? And obviously, I think there is general trust, but maybe the communities with less trust where we can kind of start bridging that gap.
I mean, I think there are sort of two different parts to it. One are people who deal with cops and others who don't, and are sort of judging how police act based on what they think other people believe, or like, or videos they see. Um, I mean, police. I actually think the crisis of police trust is overstated. The public, by and large, by huge margins, embraces the police and trusts the police, and also, especially among Black Americans, wants better policing. But even when I worked, and this was, mind you, 25 years ago, in East Baltimore, uh, I wouldn't say that, no, I was not universally loved as a cop, but there was still a lot of love out there for cops because, given the choice of, you know, being being a victim of a crime or seeing a cop around, most people always choose a cop. Now, no, it's not perfect. A lot of cops are young. A lot of cops are stupid. I actually think I was a better cop, and I mean in that sort of, PR is not a great way to put it, but for shorthand, just in how you treat people and how they feel treated. I was a bit older. I was 20. I was 28 when I became a cop, if I'm doing my math right, and actually I was 29. But I waited tables for a long time before I was a cop, and I actually think that provided me great skills with, um, being polite to people you may not like, and seeing your sort of your own attitude, as a way to, it was goal for focused. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about my ego. It wasn't always about that person. It was about, I'm trying to get something done here, and what's the best way to do that? And usually getting someone pissed off at you, even if they deserve it, but especially if they don't, often just isn't conducive to that goal. Whether that goal is having that person walk away or taking that person into custody, either way, rarely does being a dick help the job.
I'm curious, just quickly to follow up. Do you think more of the burden in doing this and fixing this lies with the police and maybe getting out there and trying to connect with the community? Or do you think it lies more so in these communities with maybe getting past these preconceived notions or bias or whatever it may be that causes this?
Look, on each interaction, I'd say it's usually more so on the police officer. Now, there are some exceptions. There are people and groups that go out and harass cops trying to do their job, active, get in their face in the name of cop watch or whatever. And it's one thing to, if you have a certain amount of distance, if that's what you want to do with your free time, knock yourself out. I prefer to, I got many things I prefer to do. Uh, but I mean, they're out there, the sort of, and protest. You get the ACAB crowd or the Antifa crowd. But by and large, if you're just a cop answering the radio and going on calls, doing your job, yeah, it's on you. You're the person of authority. You're the one being paid to be there. You treat people hopefully with a certain amount of professionalism. Um, but again, I think it's a little bit the whole of a red herring in that if cops do their job effectively, I think the public will cut them so much slack, perhaps even too much to some extent. People want to feel safe, and that is more important actually than almost any other thing cops do. And if you're the one that called cops because other people are, destroying the hallway in your building or whatever, and cops are rude to you, I mean that's unfortunate, but it's people contain multitudes. They can both say, "Man, yeah, that why that cop treat me that way?" But I still need that kind of policing, and if the policing actually solves the problem, they'll go, "Well, all right, whatever." People got thick skin by and large.
Yeah, and I wanted to bounce off that. You said people want to feel safe. Obviously, a big contributor to that is lower crime rates. What would you say is the biggest root cause for crime today? Would you blame poverty, culture, family breakdown, or would you attribute it to something else?
I'm old fashioned in that I like to blame the individual. I like to blame criminals, and not actually take it back to the abstract.
Hmm.
Certainly, how you're raised matters. Certainly, the environment you're raised matters. Certainly, the culture that you grew up with matters. And it matters a lot. I mean, that's what determines who you are, but you still have a choice.
Hmm.
It may sometimes be a shitty choice, honestly. And some people, some people, yeah, some people don't have the choice to become a violent criminal. For others, you got to go, well, should I go out with hang out with those people or not? Um, so I don't mean to discount any of that, but in terms of preventing crime, those are distractions. We know, particularly as a, Harvard and Princeton educated sociologist, it's really the root causes argument I push back against. That they say, oh, people, you hear this and it's just not true. Oh, we can't police our way out of this problem. Well, it depends on the problem. Often we can, and if it's crime, almost always we can. And we have to focus on the so-called root causes: poverty, racism, unemployment, the bad family structure. Though the left tends to avoid family structure and culture, but we know we can, and those are those are important.
Hmm.
Addressing poverty, arguably could be the most important thing we do, more important perhaps than crime prevention. But we know time and time again that the two aren't well correlated even. And when New York did reduce crime and cut murders, first by 50%, then another 50%. And it gets back to, the book Back from the Brink and the crime drop. Poverty in New York actually increased when that was going on. Giuliani was cutting social programs and social spending. And, politically, I think, those are not choices I would have made to cut those programs, but he did, and violence plummeted. We know we don't have to address root causes to address serious violent crime because it's part of what I get from teaching at John Jay. I mean, most of my students are not wealthy, to put it mildly. Most of them are not white. Um, most of them have not had easy lives. And
Hmm.
there they are in college. And they know people, friends, families, sometimes siblings who made other choices. And it's the idea that, oh, well, because you grew up poor, that explains why you're mugging an old lady. Like, no, that doesn't explain it. And it's kind of insulting to everyone else, the vast majority of people who somehow avoid hurting others for no good reason. Um, but if we want to focus on crime, and I'm going to get even more narrow than crime. Like, if you want to focus on gun crime, then focus on gun crime. That involves illegal guns and the people who illegally use them. Don't overthink the stuff, because usually overthinking it doesn't work.